Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here this evening or Sunday morning as you're waking up, getting going for what is the final day of the weekend, unless you got Monday off by some miracle to go out camping. Let me tell you, the Oilers, well, we're still waiting on the coaching front here on Saturday night. We likely won't hear until Monday, Tuesday at the earliest when it comes to that. But for the Oilers, there's kind of maybe a thing lingering here after the July 1st and, the other updates we've made and the trade for Ike Howard and all that. And that is still the goaltending for the Edmonton Oilers. And while this is really just me addressing a comment I made today that I feel like needs to be expanded upon, the Oilers may be in the market. I'll discuss that in a few moments for a goaltender come training camp as opposed to right now. The Oilers and the NHL kind of in an interesting spot, if you would. Of course, the Oilers would have been especially in an interesting spot had they chose to re-sign Ollie Rodriguez. So there's a couple other guys like that. And obviously by the title, you've already clicked and you know what's up. So let's get to it without wasting any further time. If you are new, consider hitting that subscribe button. Would love to have you aboard as a regular subscriber here on Dolynny TV. To those of you that have hit that button over the course of the past 2 weeks after getting back to action here following pretty quiet playoffs on the channel, thank you so much. So that is where we go to here. And well, the name Artur Silovs, that is the name that you need to know over in Vancouver. Of course, famous for that 2024 playoff run against the Vancouver Canucks, which we were able to finally end in Game 7. He gave us the biggest headaches we could possibly have, especially against a Canadian foe. And you know what? Then came the NHL this year, struggled out of the gate, and well, ended up winning the Calder Cup at the end of the day with the Abbotsford Canucks. So all told, an up down all around stellar season for Artur Silovs, which leaves him in a precarious spot at the NHL level, given the fact that the Vancouver Canucks chose to re-sign Thatcher Demko, and of course they've got Kevin and Lankinen tied up as well. So what that leaves is a goaltender who may not know where he stands in the organization, a goaltender with a lot of potential upside. You've pretty much everything except for his NHL time in the regular season has been very, very positive for Silovs, and I would assume that there is a team out there, whether it be the Oilers or another NHL squad, that is lining up no matter what way to get their hands on him. And I assume the Oilers, if they're looking for a goaltender, somebody to battle with alongside Stuart Skinner, especially longer term, Silovs has got to be on your list. I just think one way or another that's got to be a name that's poken out. And this is where I'll expand on an idea that I've heard on Oilers now a couple of times, I want to say, over the past 2 weeks, where again there's going to be a lot of movement come training camp. There's a couple of teams right now over the NHL salary cap, so while that movement may very well still happen prior to things settling up here in training camp, there is going to be a lot of guys who have to hit waivers, guys who have to be cut from the NHL roster, that decisions will not be made lightly, and instead maybe getting an asset, or maybe, not confusing the situation too much further. And you know how much Vancouver loves confusing the goaltending thing until it ends up having to be dealt with, which very well with Silovs it might have to be after what happened down there in the AHL this past season. Well, let's just say for the Oilers, there could be some benefit to be had there with Silovs if the Canucks end up deciding to move on. Now, the reason I am doing this video, I've made you wait 4 minutes for it, is today, talking about Silovs, trading for him here in July, August, the Oilers might not necessarily have the assets available to them to make that trade happen with the Canucks. Specifically, you're the Oilers, they're the Canucks. The asking price has got to be a lot higher than it might be for a team, I don't know, like the Boston Bruins, or a team like, I know Vancouver, Boston have history, but somebody who's going to be a heck of a lot more irrelevant to where the Canucks are trying to get this season versus, the Edmonton Oilers, who, at the end of the day, if you want to do anything in the playoffs, the Oilers are either waiting for you in round 1 or round number 2 if you're the Canucks, at best round 3. So I know the Vancouver Canucks as well were a bit of a mess this year. I think we all know that, as we kind of saw that video from me as well come out about the Vancouver Canucks fold the franchise video. You know, those titles, they're eye-catching and they're a little bit argumentative, but I'm sorry, the Canucks were a mess this year. Silovs did not help very much. He was a bright spot in the minors, but at the NHL level, only registering 3 wins or something like that in 10 games, that's not going to benefit the team too much. But again, he's got tremendous upside, and for an Oilers squad that's got a veteran journeyman backup who's done stellar at the NHL level, but again, voodoo are the goalies. You just don't know how long that's going to last for Cal Pickard. And, you know, switching goaltending coaches, maybe Dustin Schwartz worked good things with Pickard, maybe not with Stu, and maybe you bring in a new guy and it's vice versa. So hopefully for the Oilers, if they are targeting a young guy, the new voice works well for both Stu and the new guy, and it works out. And again, that's where maybe Silovs, who at the NHL level with the Vancouver Canucks wasn't getting what he needed to hear to succeed this regular season. And given the fact as well that the Vancouver Canucks goaltending was a bit of a mess with Demko's injuries and getting back from a major injury, and obviously Kevin Lankinen having the starter role for a little bit, and obviously having 2 other guys play a combined 12 games. So there's a ton of moving parts here, and again, I would harp back that this is not likely anything that the Edmonton Oilers can really, truly action on until at least September at the earliest, maybe even bleeding into October. I think it was Bob Stauffer kind of the day after the Ike Howard trade. I believe I've got my facts right there. Somebody on Oilers now saying that the goaltending market is going to be especially hot once waiver wire opens up in September and guys have to start making decisions on players and start moving them down potentially early to try and avoid teams scooping them up on the final few days, right? If you sneak them through early when the bigger cuts are happening in the roster, maybe somebody doesn't notice that guy's on the waiver wire and doesn't claim him. Now, Silovs, obviously the big thing here is I don't think the Canucks would be ever stupid enough to let him even have a thought of losing him for free. So you would end up, even if he's waivers exempt, I wasn't able to check that out before this video, but it doesn't matter. No matter what, if the Canucks are sending Silovs to the minors, it will be via a trade out of the organization any which way if they feel at risk of losing him or they feel like the AHL is not the spot for him. So again, while the Oilers might not have the assets right now, again, the Oilers might have just what the Canucks are looking for to not lose out on Silovs and a wasted season, whether it be lost on the waiver wire or down in the AHL, whatever the outcomes truly are. But for the Oilers, again, a chance to benefit from somebody else's misfortune doesn't happen often. Again, it's starting to become a little bit of a trend here with Stan Bowman and over the past few years as well with rehab projects and Evander Kane and Corey Perry. So hopefully the Oilers can find a way, to wheel and deal and find something. And Silovs is just one of those goalies specifically that keeps getting mentioned to me in the comments section here on the channel where I feel I had to make something discussed of it. But again, there's going to be several players and goaltenders across the NHL that are in similar situations. For the Oilers last year, if you would remember, it was Raphael Lavoie, who ultimately ended up playing a few NHL games with the Vegas Golden Knights and looks like he will be probably a full-time NHLer for him this year simply because of the cap constraints that the Knights will have after signing Mitch Marner to his massive deal. So for right now, we'll see what happens, but the Oilers definitely, at whatever the current asking price is for Silovs, do not have the price to pay to the Vancouver Canucks. So for now, we wait. But again, come training camp, come when the Oilers might, have a goaltending injury, whatever it might take, it's going to be a little bit easier to do the deal, I would figure. Not necessarily saying that is truly going to happen between the Oilers and Canucks. But again, if you're sitting here thinking, what about that guy in Vancouver they got there that won that Calder Cup? That may be a good thing to put a little pin in and just wait until training camp to see what happens. That is how I would truly explain my feelings on Artur Silovs. And of course, it's exciting because, again, you're talking about a guy who's not necessarily super young, but in terms of goaltending capabilities, definitely younger than maybe what we got in Calvin Pickard. And we'll take the opportunity to go out there and hopefully prey on somebody's misfortune should it come true. And again, like I said, Artur Silovs and Stuart Skinner, could both of them benefit from a new voice? I think the answer simply is yes. And for the Oilers, could you benefit from picking up another young guy from a situation where he has a chance to succeed? maybe for the Oilers, it could be the answer. So for right now, friends, chew on it. Enjoy your Saturday night. Enjoy your Sunday morning. And we'll catch you later on either Sunday or on Monday. Thanks for being aboard. I am up on out of here.